The 6 spark plugs on the M104 engine are located under a cover on the top of the valve cover, red arrow. You will need to remove the air intake tube, green arrow, to get access to the plugs, coils, and wires. Start by disconnecting the MAF sensor. The MAF is held in place by 2 clips to the air filter box, red arrow, one shown and one below. A single clamp to the intake tube, yellow arrow, and the wiring harness as indicated by the green arrow. Turn the locking ring on the harness, red arrow, counterclockwise. This will separate it from the connection on the MAF, yellow arrow. Separate it from the air filter lid by pulling back on the 2 clips, red arrows. You can leave the MAF attached to the tube and remove the MAF and the tube together. Remove the 2 10mm nuts where the air intake tube attaches to the valve cover as indicated by the red arrows. Disconnect the air intake temperature sensor, red arrow. There is a single hose clamp that holds the intake tube to the throttle body. You will need to reach in between the water pump and the intake runners with a long flathead screwdriver, red arrow, to loosen the clamp. With the clamp loose, remove the intake tube and MAF from the top of the engine. There are 6 5mm Allen bolts that hold the access panel to the top of the valve cover as indicated by the red arrows. Use a 5mm Allen and remove the bolts and washers, red arrow. There is a diagram on the top of the cover that illustrates the coil and plug distribution, as indicated by the red arrow. Remove the cover from the top of the engine. This photo illustrates how the number 6 coil also fires the number 1 plug, red arrows. The number 2 coil also fires the number 5 plug, yellow arrows, and the number 4 coil also fires the number 3 plug, green arrows. You're going to be removing the coils and wires completely from the head. It's a good idea to number them first for ease of reinstallation. Pull the spark plug connector up by the hard plastic part, red arrow. Never pull the connector up from the wire. You can pull the connector for the coilover plugs up by the coil itself, as indicated by the red arrow. The wires, coils, and harnesses all disconnect from each other for replacement. Use a 5/8 thin-walled spark plug socket and remove the plugs. When installing plugs, always thread them gently by hand until you are sure they are properly threading. You do not want to strip or cross-thread the plug holes. Examine the plugs for any issue with the motor, red arrow. Installation is the reverse of removal. Thanks for watching. Click here to view the original article along with hundreds of other DIY content for your car.